Dana's in Arizona.
Arizona. It's still like 70 during the day. We still turn on our AC in the afternoon.
Yeah. It's not very nice to share, but thank you.
What part of Arizona?
Oh, she was cutting in and out there.
Oh, I'm in Gilbert.
Okay. After high school in Colorado, I headed to Phoenix, so I was tired of the cold and wanted the warm.
There's plenty of it here. Seems to not be going away this year.
He was a good trainer for spending 6 years in Kuwait.
Oh, wow. All right. So let me grab my, where is it here? Where's my slides? Where are my slides? Come on. There we go. Grab this. Open here. So for those just hopping on, I'm going to spend a little bit more time this morning on mindset and strategy because I just some conversations that I've been having pretty repeatedly. I think this might be helpful. What happened? Where did my slides go? There they are. What the heck? What's going on here? All right, hold on. I'm not sure what's going on, but my slides don't want to cooperate. There we go. I don't know what was going on. Okay, real quick one to start, and then I'm going to do a deeper dive. You must first become consistent before you can become exceptional. In other words, you have to put in a lot of work and repetition over and over and over and over and over before you can become exceptional. And become, I would say, before you can, I wish this would say becoming exceptional, because exceptional is not a destination, it's a journey. So like you have to consistently put in reps. I was talking with an agent yesterday. This is part of my inspiration for what I'm sharing this morning. And I'm not going to specifically say who it was, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She was, how do I want to frame this? She had not done enough work to even have feedback to know if something is working or not working. And the conversation started with, you keep telling me that I had a win last week. I don't understand how that's a win. And the win was she got an off-market seller to raise their hand and say, yes, I would still consider an offer. And in that same conversation, she told me she had an appointment with one of her past clients to go look at that very property tonight. And then I asked, how many other people have you talked to in the last week? And she was like, maybe a couple. That's not enough. That's not enough. You have to consistently put in the work before you can become exceptional, or before even starting on the path to becoming exceptional. You have to believe that something will work, decide that you are going to make it work no matter what, and then take the action to actually make it work. I have spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years on training and coaching and seminars and workshops and so forth. And some of them were incredible, amazing, top notch. And some of them were, and I'll have to mark this one explicit, they were shit. And you know what? I got benefit from all of them because I chose to get benefit from all of them. I love coaching youth sports. Some of my fondest memories of the last X years were coaching my son's travel baseball team. I was their head coach for 6 years, and we were pretty freaking good. Not because I was all that great. We had dudes everywhere. We just had guys, we'd coach them hard in practice, and come the weekend game, we rewrote the lineup, and then I'm hanging out here. I get to be on the field watching versus in the stands watching. And we had a lot of success. We won a lot. And also, we didn't win all the time. Something that we talked about often was we either win or we learn. We either win or we learn. There is no losing. Losing is when you're dead. That is when you have lost. Seriously. When you're dead, you have lost. Other than that, just keep freaking going. Many of you, let me take that back. I don't want to project that on anyone. Some of you listening to this may have had experiences with a coaching program or a tool or an app or a CRM or whatever that you bought into, you invested into, and you had a terrible experience. It didn't work for you, etc. And if you invest into something, even into an idea, this doesn't even have to be literally investing dollars, but if you invest into an idea with the mindset of I'm waiting for this thing to prove to me that it works, you have already lost. And I might be a lunatic or a weirdo or whatever. And my wife would probably say that I am. Because I'm default yes to everything. It's why we work. She's default no, I'm default yes. So I understand that I am not the norm. But anytime I'm doing something new, trying something new, etc., I immediately think I'm going to make this work. Now, some things prove that they don't work, but it's not because I didn't do the work or believe that it would work. It was that it was literally bad strategy. I will share, this has nothing to do with real estate, but I think it relates to this conversation. When Caden was born, Caden's our oldest, he's 19 now. Around that time, I was pretty heavy. It was the heaviest I had ever been in my life. And weight is something that I struggled with a lot. I was very overweight when I was young. And I decided at my 12th birthday that I was never going to buy Husky clothes again. I can remember very vividly, my mom and I, we were shopping at the VF outlet in Reading. And I might even cry sharing some of this story here because it's very foundational for me. But I remember thinking, this was the little rack that I had to pick from. And I was like, never again. This is the last time this is happening. And through sheer brute force of committing to completely changing diet and working out in like 45 to 60 days, I lost 35 pounds at 12 years old. And yet it still was something that, it still was something that I struggled with for many years. And I remember getting to, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I'll say 205 or 210, which for me was the heaviest I've been. I'm not very tall and I'm not very big. Like, I don't have a big frame. I don't know how my boys are as big as they are. Like, they're giants. They have huge, they're not just tall, they have big frames. Like, their shoulders are twice as wide as mine. Anyway, I got heavy and I was looking for a solution to that. I was seeking a solution. I had a problem and I was seeking a solution. And I can vividly remember one of the solutions I tried. It was this guy, Kevin Trudeau. Everybody heard of Kevin Trudeau? Shyster of shysters, if I'm being honest. But I bought in. And I literally bought a book. So it's not like I didn't invest hundreds or thousands of dollars. I bought this book, and the plan that he outlined was insane. It was like you had to it was like this 80-step plan, blah, blah, blah. And yet I still tried it. And it didn't work. But it's not because I didn't try it and I didn't believe that it would work. It was that it was the wrong plan. It was too complicated. There was too many steps. And then I picked up the 4-Hour Body by Tim Ferriss. I love him. I bought his 4-Hour Work Week book the year it came out. It has had a huge influence in my life and business. I bought that book. And if you don't know what that book is, I should have brought it out. I didn't know I was going to tell this story this morning because I just, I get going on stuff. But I should have brought it out. It's thick. It's this blue book and it is thick. but it's not intended to read front to back. So there are 4 chapters in there for people that want to lose weight. 4 chapters. I got the book. I read those 4 chapters that night, and I started the next morning. Believing this, here's what I knew from it. This seems really simple, and I could do this. And in 35, 40 days, I lost, I'm going to mess up the numbers here. I don't know. I lost 25 or 28 pounds. And not just that, like because of the way that was outlined and so forth, like my body shape changed. Like when I lost weight earlier, and maybe you've experienced this if weight is something you fluctuate, I just was a skinnier version of myself. Like I was just, I didn't look all that different. The scale said I was different, but I didn't really look all that different. Following this plan, I lost weight, and like also the things were redistributed. Like I lost fat, not just pounds on a scale. How does that relate to any of this? Well, here's what I can tell you with certainty. This is a simple plan. Every single one of you can follow, and every single one of you can do more deals if you follow it. But you have to believe it will work, not think it's got to prove to you that it will work. Because if you're bringing that mindset, nothing will work. Nothing will work. If you're waiting for your coach or your broker or your whoever to prove to you that the plan that they have for you will work. Because here's the thing about real estate. There are lots of ways that you can do more deals. This is one simple blueprint and strategy that is working incredibly well for me, that no question, it will work. If you work, that's my mantra, the 3rd slide in the workshop that I've been doing. This does work and will work if you do the work. And also, you have to believe that that work will yield fruit, because literally you could take 2 people in the exact same circumstances, following the exact same plan, and the one that believes that this is going to work will crush the one who is just waiting for this thing to prove that it works. So, deals are happening anywhere and everywhere. Let go of the limiting belief. If you believe that that's not the case, I will show some proof as to how we can identify that. And then specifically, not in my market. I think it's always useful if we've got other, markets or ideas. So Stuart emailed me last night, and he was gracious enough to let me use his email as a topic for this morning. Looking at this 3-step blueprint, what I'm going to summarize what Stuart sent me. Essentially, he said, and Stuart is licensed. You reside in Georgia, McDonough area, if I remember correctly, but you're also licensed so you're also licensed in Florida. So he messaged me about, well, actually, Stuart, instead of me talking, why don't you tee up the scenario and the strategy, and then I'm going to outline my thought process around this and how I would approach it if I were in your shoes.
Okay. So I'm in Atlanta. My mother-in-law passed away in August at 96. And so just was going through, the estate sale process and all that kind of stuff. So we're getting to the point where it's going to be time to get rid of her house. Big house, I don't know, 5,000 feet, maybe 6,000 feet. There were 5 kids. But, 50 plus years old. I'm not sure exactly, but it needs a lot of work. And so it's not, I'm 99.9% sure it's not going to be a owner occupant to take that on.
Sure.
So most likely it's going to be a cash investor. Now, my oldest sister-in-law, who lives in Tallahassee, has been kind of dealing with the estate and talking with an agent there. Apparently, a good agent, about selling the house. And I am licensed in Florida. I thought, well, maybe I can sell it, but that's fine if they want to use somebody there. That makes sense. So my question to Josh last night was, how can I use this to go find the buyer for it? It's not on the market yet. Don't know when it will be. Relatively soon. There's no price. Really don't know much about it. There's no, obviously no lockbox to get people in kind of thing. So it's like, How can I use this to approach, some cash buyers or whoever in Tallahassee that might want to buy this before it does go on the market. So that's basically.
So that's the jumping off point. I'm gonna use LeadDeck, but I'm gonna also just think through some things strategically here first and foremost. Number one, the bait that he has. I think I mentioned this. I know I mentioned this yesterday on our Founders Club Mastermind. I can't remember if it was on the Closers Cafe as well. But off-market deals, you get way higher response rate. I think it was at the end of the cafe because I was making the point that my outreach yesterday to buyers was with an on-market deal. And the point I was making is if I was reaching out about an off-market deal, I would have already had more responses. And yet, which this is on my number 2, after we go through this, I'll update you on the call that I had with Harry. It took me a half an hour to get to Harry. And Harry is like, as long as I do my job, Harry will turn into at least 5 figures in gross commission income for me in the next 12 months, if not sooner. Okay. So he's got off-market bait, great bait. Number 1. Number 2, it's in an area that he's licensed, but he's not physically there, which it's something to consider as part of this. Number 3, this is obvious, but I'm going to state it regardless. There can be only one person that buys that house. And yet the work that we do and what I will outline here could turn into other opportunities. Now, Stuart's not there, so it may end up being that he's referring other people, but I mean, he can do all of that sitting in that same office there. You know what I mean? So like, what are we talking about? So let's actually dig into what I would do and how I would think about this. Number 1, and this relates to the point, the rant I was on prior to having Stuart tee up this opportunity. There are deals happening in every single market. And I hope I'm not lagging too bad. It looks like I'm lagging. Hopefully you can hear me. But there are deals happening in every market. Every time I do this, people give me zip codes. Now, I've heard of Tallahassee, but I've done this a whole bunch of times where people give me towns or zip codes that I have never heard of in my life. And we pull up, for example, I'm going to start with the flippers because that may be a good place to start given what Stuart said. Every time I do this, I cannot believe how much activity there are in a little town in North Carolina that I've never heard of. So I'm going to pull up all of Tallahassee. 203 flippers. That's too many. That's too big. So Stuart, I don't know if you know this. Do you know the specific, because I'm guessing Tallahassee has more than one zip code. Do you know the specific zip code?
Yeah, I just looked it up. Couldn't remember. And there are 32312.
So just in that zip code, there are 34 flippers. That is probably where I would start. But I'm not done. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. And Sean, for those of you that are Founders Club members and you were on the mastermind yesterday, Sean shared a story. There's a guy, he's got a little office on the other side of the river from me. And he shares an office with a fellow by the name of CJ. And CJ's been helping us with some of the things that are coming with LeadDeck. And he's also been curious. And Sean wants him to be, if I'm being honest, he wants CJ to demonstrate to everyone how easy it is to actually uncover opportunities using the tool, because CJ's not licensed. And he has a wee little bit of experience in real estate because he did dispositions for a local wholesale company for like 3 months. So it's not that he has absolutely zero experience in real estate, but let's face it, very, very little. And why I'm bringing this up is Friday morning, he pulled up the flippers in a city on the East Shore, the Harrisburg area. And the first guy he called, and this is the script that he used, write this down. Hey, Stuart, it's CJ. Just curious, are you still in the real estate game? That was all I said. That was all I said. First guy he calls has 90 off-market properties that he needs to disposition, and told him his buy box because that's not enough. Now, he bought a bunch of them at tax sale, and they're literally sorting through which ones have clear title, which title, whatever. But my point is, CJ had no context. He had no limiting beliefs because he had nothing to go on other than Sean told him, go pull up and start tapping to call and text. And he was even doing it from his laptop. He wasn't even using the thing on his phone to tap. He was hand dialing and copying and pasting emails to these. So I would start with those 34, and you could. Now, that may or may not, are you still in the real estate game, may or may not be comfortable for you. And I don't mean you, Stuart, just anyone. But find your version of that, meaning find the version of that scripting that fits your personality and your communication style, etc. Point is, the bigger picture. You can't say the wrong thing to the right person or the right thing to the wrong person. You can be terrible on the phone, and if you're talking to the right person, you'll still uncover opportunity. Like the guy that hung up on me yesterday, which rarely happens, but I'm kind of glad it did. I was terrible on the phone, and also it wouldn't have mattered. I could have been flawless in my scripting and communication. He still was not. He was not interested, and he was going to hang up on me. He was having a bad day. I know that he's got 53 properties, so he probably has a bunch of them that are, he might be in trouble with them. I don't know. Like but there was nothing I could have said to have changed that. And then I call Harry, and I'm like, hey Harry, I don't know. It seems like maybe I know you, blah, blah, blah. And then, he's telling me that he's on a trip in Jamaica and this, that, and the other, and he's got $2 million that he needs to place and this, that, and the other thing. So, man, I'm on a rant this morning. Sorry. 34 flippers, just in that one zip code, 32312. So the next thing I would do, I still screwed it up. 32312. Yeah, there we go. The next one I would go to is the cash buyers. And you could start with either or. Like, it doesn't really matter. There's no right or wrong. But I would go through all of them. I can't even remember how many flippers there were, 38, maybe 36, something like that. So you've got the decks combined. There will probably be overlap, meaning some of them will be both on this count and the flipper count. Let's say we have 50 unique people to reach out to. If it were me, my plan of attack would be this. You can do one of two ways. You could say, I'm going to block 3 hours and I'm going to reach out to all 50. Or a better plan, if you're just getting back to the gym, do 10 a day for 5 days. 10 a day for 5 days. There's no right or wrong answer for how to do that. Keep in mind this. That's a big house. So immediately you're going to have some of them that will cross it off because they don't take on projects that are that much square footage, because renovating that much square footage is expensive no matter how you slice it. So the next thing I would then do is I would still do the work, assuming that they're going to do deals. And whether you refer them to the agent that is it your sister-in-law? I can't remember who, but they've got an agent down there. It doesn't really matter who. You could refer them to that person to do other deals and negotiate a referral fee. I mean, there's any number of things you could do with that once you present them with an actual deal that they can underwrite and say, yes, this is the kind of property I'm interested in. How can I get more information or go check it out? Or no, this doesn't fit my buy box because X or Y or Z. This is more what I'm looking for. Okay, great. Let me get you hooked up with my my business partner down there or an agent partner that I work with down there, however you want to frame it, and see. And then you could potentially help and guide them on how to find deals for those people down there, or just refer them to LeadDeck and we'll help them find deals. So that's how I would use LeadDeck. I would also consider, some of the shotgun approaches that I recommend when you've got a deal. You could go and join some local groups in that Tallahassee area and just put out
I did find one or two Facebook groups that were real estate related. One's a flipper or investor group. I think both of them were.
I forgot that I put this together. I'll put this in the chat and we'll put this with the replay. This one, Wi-Fi, not strong. But this is a bunch of examples of posts that I've made into groups using bait, like Stuart's bait here, that have brought me inbound opportunities. Sometimes 1 or 2, sometimes 8 or 10. But you've got it. It really doesn't take more than a few minutes to post in those groups. And again, we can only find one buyer for that deal, but I wouldn't let it, go at that, especially Stuart, because you are licensed there. I know you're not, actively producing there per se, but you are licensed there. And you could refer them. You could also, you could even do the work of trying to find them deals and just have boots on the ground that you're referring them with. All right. So low. This is great, James. Yeah, go ahead.
So when it comes to approaching them, since they're like, well, what are the details? What's the information? How much is it or something like that? And we don't have any of that yet.
I would just be as transparent as possible. So I would, whatever you're comfortable sharing about the situation and scenario, I would share that. And I would say, we don't even have pictures yet. But what I can tell you is it's vacant. I can tell you this, and this. You could send them. What I will often do is, if you, like, I might grab the information from Remind, wherever you can pull tax record data, or if there's a previous, if it previously sold on the MLS, or even just, I would send them the link to the property on Zillow, whatever, just so they have something to look at. And just fully transparently explain the scenario. Hey, look, this is where we're at with it. We haven't even established an asking price, but I saw that you're an active, an active investor in the area. And I thought you might be interested. If you are, let me know. We can get you in to take a look and, give us your number and I'll see what we can do. That's kind of how I would position it. If you had a price and you had photos, better, but the fact that it's off market and that it's not ideal for an owner occupant, like, that's enough to at least initiate the conversations. So I wouldn't wait until you have more of that to at least initiate that process, because some of them might say, I'm absolutely interested. Please send me photos when you have them. And then you can go back to your, I keep forgetting, sister-in-law or whomever, and say, do you think we could go get photos at least of the property? Because I already have 3 interested parties that said they might like to write an offer, but we need to get the photos, et cetera. The other thing, which this is number 3 on my list for today, but I'll share it now, or I'll mention it now. If you haven't pulled cash offer options from the institutional buyers, just to have a baseline to see where that's coming in, I would probably do that as well. My white label version of that is fastcashoffers.ai, but you could even go directly to, for example, Quick Buy and see what their preliminary offers would be. Now, the problem with Quick Buy, you could probably get a preliminary offer, but they want photos before they'll finalize anything. But at least to get a ballpark, you might do that as well. And maybe actually, well, I didn't ask you that. I don't want to show the address here. I was going to say I could pull it up in mine and you could at least see what the preliminary offers are, but I could do that, offline if,
I don't care.
Nobody's going to do anything with it. Right. So, let's see what those look like. Cause I'll just bounce around. Meaning, like, I'm kind of going out of order of my list, but who cares? I made the list. What's the address?
7015 Spencer, SPENSER or CER.
Yep.
Road.
There it is. So it'll take a couple seconds to pull these up. And this will be, it'll be interesting to look at. I do want to answer a question. Val, who is in my EXP org. At last check, Val had 4 for sale by owner listings that she was going to check out on Friday, and she was going to use the cash offers to present some results in advance to the for sale by owners. And in other words, give them some preliminary offers or options that then she could potentially pivot to a 7-day stress-free home sale or her version of that. Okay, so there's no image here because there must not be a Google Street View of the property.
It's buried in so many trees, you wouldn't see anything.
Well, no, I mean, some Google, like my neighborhood, there isn't Google Street View. I don't know why. They never sent their little car through, or however they generate those. It's just never come through my neighborhood. And I've asked Joe, and it hasn't happened yet, but I asked him, could we replace, instead of just showing a blank picture, could we put the map view? Because the map view exists. I mean, that's obvious. This actually gives me a reason to remind him. I didn't believe that it was actually 5,000 or 6,000 square feet, if I'm being honest. I figured, maybe that's with a basement or whatever, but it is the public record says it's 4,600 square feet. So that's a big house. That's a big house. That's a lot of square footage. And these, the automated value ranges are anywhere from 610 to 630. Right off the bat, if I'm presenting that to a seller, I want to immediately make the connection with them that this is computer generated values, and it also assumes the property is fully renovated and turnkey. Right? Because some people think, well, this is somehow Zillow knows the condition of my property, and right, they're taking into account that it needs a roof and a new heat pump, and it needs new flooring everywhere and a new kitchen. No, it doesn't know any of that. It's taking, these are what properties for retail are selling for, and it's calculating off of that. So just that's just a little tip, I suppose. Quick buy. So let me take a minute to explain what these two are, because that was Val's question. She doesn't understand what's single close, dual close. Single close means like a typical or traditional transaction. There's one transaction. Quick buy in this case will come and buy the property for $581 with a lot of fees. Okay, there's a lot of fees. This is funny. So I'm live streaming. I live stream these on TikTok, which, by the way, if you're watching on TikTok and you want to see the screen, etc., you can go over to my YouTube channel, or the link to come into the Closers Cafe is in the description of the live stream. Sometimes I get people, just like random people, that they're trying to get on as co-host on TikTok. What are we doing? Anyway, the single close is a traditional sale, meaning it's a one-time sale. They have a lot of fees. Okay. Quick buy has a lot of fees, but it still might make sense in some situations and scenarios. I keep forgetting I have to get back with Shay on my team, because he had a settlement that was supposed to happen last week or the week before with Quick Buy, where it was a great option for them. All things considered, it was a great option. Quick Buy, with the single close, they buy the property, and then they will relist the property with whoever brought them the deal. So Shay, in that scenario, brought the buyer, got paid for that transaction, and then will be the listing agent on the other transaction. In other words, like, it's a good payday. It's a good payday. Okay. So, and the fees are broken down here. You'll also see, depending on where you are, you might see other offers. Like, Stuart, if you pulled up a property in McDonough, there would be other companies that you would see preliminary offers from, like probably Homeward and maybe one other one. But this is in this area, which is similar to me. Oh no, Homeward is here. Homeward has one of these. I've heard good things about them, but they don't do business in my market, so I've never even seen them in here. Man, I get so easily off track. Squirrel. Single close, typical transaction, but there are fees involved. Okay. And these are preliminary offers. So if if they decided they wanted to go with this, you have to, with Quick Buy, you have to submit. They have an app that you have to submit the property on. It's literally like an iPhone or Android store app or whatever they call that, Google store. And you have to submit the property through there, and you have to upload photos, etc., to get a finalized offer. Okay. The dual close options are there's multiple transactions. So the company, whichever one of these, the buyer will purchase the property. The seller will get some of their equity. And then in most of these, there's some type of renovation or something that is going to happen. The property will then be listed on the open market and sold to a retail buyer. In most cases, a retail buyer, but I suppose it could be, a landlord buyer, not on this property. But, if it were a property that made sense for a landlord, it could be that. But it's sold on the open market to an end user, an end buyer. And when it's sold there, any remaining equity outside of the fees and costs go to the seller. So it's kind of like they partner with the seller to flip their house. And there are lots of different flavors of dual closes here. I will say, how do I want to frame this? These are great for getting you into more conversations, presenting potential solutions in advance, and demonstrating to homeowners that you're not just the typical agent like everybody else. I have never actually closed a transaction with any of these. I've gotten to the point where we were doing due diligence. I've gotten contracts from different ones of them. And for one reason or another, we end up most often either pivoting, or I've had a few where we got to that point and the sellers decided we're just not going to sell right now. We're just going to hang on for, whatever reason. So I bring that up to say, not that they can't or won't perform, because they can and do. It's just that in most cases, in my experience, they're not in the client's best interest. So they're very useful and valuable for the reasons that I already mentioned. You will open up more conversations. You are demonstrating a different level of expertise and knowledge and solutions that others aren't even aware exist. But more often than not, what's going to be in their best interest is A, selling to a local buyer, or B, going on the open market. Because the other thing with the, you might say that this is a little bit bait and switch, because it's saying that the offer is $581, but really the offer is $475, because that's the net to the seller, and I make that very transparent with them. I want to, when I'm presenting these to homeowners, I'm not trying to hide any of that. I'm making it very transparent. So, and also, I would never present all of these. I present 2 or 3 of these options. So the way, if you're using my version or if you have iList on any level, once you save the snapshot, so I hit a button here to save the snapshot, then I can show or hide any of these offers. So what I typically do, some of this will be dictated by what information I know about the property. So I'll hide this because the Zudilio cash offer is the typical, is what people think as the, the typical low ball offer. And then I'll hide a bunch of these. I might leave the cash plus and the advantage. Okay. But no more than 3, because providing options is valuable, because they're choosing one of the options versus yes or no. But when you get beyond 3 or 4, then it's just like, hey, this is confusing. I don't understand that. There's too many choices, right? And a confused mind says no. Like they'll just move on. Any questions on that? And Val, I'm hoping that maybe that clears up the dual close. And one last thing I'll say, there is pretty good breakdowns on how these work. if you click the actual view. So it is broken down in black and white, and some of them even have like video explainers of the offers and breaking down how those work. Here's what I am most often pivoting from, whether it is these offers or the actual local buyer offer. Hey, Stuart, this is what most of my clients end up doing. Most people that we end up working with, they end up putting one of the, we talk about or identify which of these is the best potential solution for us. And then we put it in our back pocket as plan B to see if we can beat it on the market with my 7-day stress-free home sale system. And if we can't, we can always go back to plan B. But I think we're going to get a better, more convenient solution that will also help you net a lot more from the sale of the property if we go that route. And there's no harm in exploring that because there's no cost or obligation to you, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner, either way. And that I found to be effective. And actually, I have to do a number of those this morning, meaning record videos from people that I've had conversations with or at least preliminary discussions with in the last day or two. Any other questions on this before we keep it moving along? And I'll share something that James shared in the chat here.
The compensation column, that is after the net, correct?
That's yes. So, well, that's agent compensation. Yeah. But that's baked into that is included or calculated. So basically the fees and the compensation, you know what? In this one, it's not being indicated like that. Hold on. Initial closing. Okay, so it is compensation. The compensation is included in the fees. So it's one of the fees.
Okay.
So this 18,532 is already baked into the 60,230.
Just broken out what's most important to the agent.
Right. Well, yes, but also transparent to the seller. This is my compensation. The rest are fees for service, basically. Terrell.
Will you go back to the previous where you're going to the kind of the details?
Sure.
Because it shows because the agent, so it indicates the agent cash was 1%, and then 2%. It's too good. Second, I have the cold now. Does that mean on the second sale?
I'll tell you that.
And the second, it's 3%. Is that?
Some of this is negotiable, meaning Zoomkasa, for example, they'll structure it however you want. In other words, if you want all of your compensation on the first sale, they'll structure it like that if you choose, because it's up to you to negotiate with the seller. Right. In other words, you have to explain to the seller, I'm baking all of my compensation into the first side of the transaction. But their standard way of doing it is here. The 3%, I guess.
It's breaking it down right there at the bottom, John.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on this one you're just getting 3%.
It's ultimately done.
Yeah, but you can edit, or you can negotiate that with them. I don't think you can edit it in here, but you can also.
Does Zoomkasa go back to the original agent to sell the property once it's all?
Yes, because you brought them the deal.
A separate deal?
Well, let me think this through. Zoomkasa, when they buy it, are unrepresented, and then when they list it, they're listing with you. I'm pretty sure that's how they structure them. So they buy it unrepresented because you're representing the seller, and then on the back half, you're representing them as the seller.
I see. So really in these fees, it doesn't include to the seller the listing fee, if you will. It's ultimately the selling fee for Zoomkasa.
Yes.
Is that correct.
Yeah. Here's what I will say. Also, you just have to know this well enough to have an intelligent conversation, meaning for most people, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
It's just a conversation piece.
Right.
But you want to know how, and you will learn more. This is just anything in general, right? 0 to 1 is
Right.
where you learn the most. So I learned way more the first time I submitted with Zoomkasa for a final offer. And we had to get, you have to get on Zoom with them, which QuickBuy and Zoomkasa both do that. You have to schedule a Zoom with you, them, and the seller, because they want as much transparency and everyone on the same page as possible. And in that process, like the first time I did that, I kind of felt a little foolish, but I told the seller right up front, this is the first time I've gotten to this point with this company. So I'm going to be learning on the fly a little bit, just as you are. Yeah. I didn't pretend like I know how it all works. I just was very transparent and said, I get the big picture of how these works, but I'm just as curious as you to see how they fill in the gaps and explain how how this piece works and that piece, and what happens if this, for example, this is most of them. When you have an accepted offer, the next step is they're going to get a full home inspection and appraisal. And if the seller decides not to proceed, because let's face it, there is virtually zero instance of that happening where the buyer isn't going to come back and say, we didn't know that there was this problem with it, so we got to adjust the numbers. In that case, if the seller says no, meaning if we agreed to X and now Zoomkasa, for example, is saying, we have to adjust to Y, and the seller says no, in their agreements, it says that the seller then has to pay for the appraisal and the home inspection. In other words, if they back out. So, I didn't learn that until the first time. And that was a question that my seller asked. It was a great question because I hadn't even thought of it. Yeah, because that is not the case in a traditional, like if I've got a listing and a retail buyer comes, they're not, I guess they could write it into their agreement, but I've never had that. That is
I've never seen it.
It's a buyer cost, and it's the buyer's inspection report and the buyer's appraisal. Like they own that because they paid for it. But in that case,
usually that's in the contract, at least in California, that's in the contract of who pays for it and who's responsible for it, not to circle back and go, well, I didn't like it, so you need to pay me. Well, that little twist is kind of interesting as well. But for me, I can see how going here and getting an idea so that when we go out to the local people, it's like, okay, well, they don't have all of these extra fees. They just have a lower cost, but the net is higher to
the other thing with these offers is there is way more red tape. Yeah. Meaning if you've got a local buyer, like I had a settlement yesterday. He was buying a bank-owned property. There was we had to do a bunch of docs because it was bank-owned, but on his side, like we didn't do an inspection. We didn't do we did nothing. He could care less. Like he knows what he's looking at. He knows buyer beware. He's done this a billion times. This is my number. I'm good. Like I'm taking on the risk. And so the most of the legit local buyers, and they're legit in LeadDeck because Harry, the guy I talked to yesterday, he owns 111 properties. And those are just the ones showing up in his name. Like I think he actually has more where he's got, entities or whatever, but he owns 111 properties. Like he knows what he's doing. He's not, now if he's buying a triple net commercial building, et cetera, that's a different level of due diligence. But if he's buying a residential ranch home, he's going to come and look and say, this is my number. That's it. I'll settle as soon as the title search is back at this number. I don't need anything else because I know the drill here. I know that I'm assuming some risk, and I've done this enough to know what I'm looking for, kind of thing. Yeah, good question. I don't want to. James had a great comment here from a book that he was reading in the chat. The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, self-help book. teaches readers to overcome their upper limit problem to achieve greater success, love, etc. This is just a book recommendation, so that was good. And Doreen, I appreciate that. She said the strategy is timeless. It doesn't rely on what the market is doing, and she's referring to the 3-step, this simple 3-step process. So, 10:21. Go ahead, James. Man, I gotta
I just started listening to the Chop Wood Carry Water yesterday too. After I finished that one, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned that book last week. Chop Wood Carry Water, like that is, I would say when it comes to in our household, like that is the guiding principle in our house. Good day, bad day, accolades, no accolades, whatever. Tomorrow we're gonna wake up and chop wood, carry water. We're like, not that we wouldn't, not that we don't want to celebrate and acknowledge the good or whatever, but like it will not change our behavior day to day. Like we're gonna keep working, tournament MVP or GOAT. You gave up the winning home run, the last pitch of the game Sunday at night. Monday morning, we're gonna wake up and chop wood, carry water, like because we've only lost when we're dead. So let's just keep plugging away. That book has had a dramatic impact in our household, and it's a simple, easy book for anyone to read. And it also, I mean, it's a beautiful explanation of what I was trying to communicate for the first 20 minutes, which is just do the work. Just do the work. Because and the work every day. Like, oh, I found an off market, I got an expired listing that said that they would still sell it. That's great. Tomorrow we're gonna do the work. Like that's great. And but the work tomorrow might be to try and sell that, but like that alone is not a result. And even me, like the settlement yesterday, yay, who cares? Like I got to go to work today. It was fun. It was, I had a good time with the attorney there and Ben, but like, who cares? Like next, right? Chop wood, carry water.
Hey, thanks, James. That's so bizarre because that question, what's the name of the book, is showing up with my name, but I've been sitting here with my arms crossed in my chair for the last 10 minutes. I did not type that in there.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's weird.
AI. And then Doreen said discipline, and I do think it's discipline, but it's also you have to get to the point where things are habitual. Like at this point, my morning routine and my process, it's so habitual to me. It's not discipline. I wouldn't describe it as discipline now. At some point, it may have taken like focused discipline to get to that point, but it's almost like autopilot for me now. And not that I wake up at exactly the same time every morning, but every morning I wake up early and I do this, and this. And some of that is, related to daily activities for my business. And some of that is just part of my morning routine to keep myself strong and healthy and whatever. So that habits and systems are greater than discipline and motivation, because discipline and motivation at some point will fade, but your habits and systems, if you've created those in such a way that they really are truly, those two things, habits and systematic processes, that's how you really create long-term growth. And that's really the point of chop wood, carry water, is just the habit of just, it doesn't matter. Like tomorrow we're going to do it again and again and again. A couple of final things here, because I gotta regroup before 11 a.m. On the 11 a.m. mastermind, the volunteer I had to do the DealSprint has a conflict. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to do live prospecting off-market sellers, and I would love for it to be a work session. In other words, this morning was very heavily, mindset and strategy. I would like for those that hop on for it to be more of a work session, and I'm going to be working. I'm going to call it a new script, but it's not really a new script. I'm going to use a different script than I've been using that also came from CJ, who's the fellow that I mentioned earlier that used the script. Hey, hey, James, are you still in the real estate game? That is very appropriate for expired listings and for sellers who at some point had requested an offer. So I'm going to do that work. For the first few minutes, I will give everyone a plan they can follow no matter what. They could have zero. They could, as long as they have MLS access, they can follow the plan. And for those of you using LeadDeck, you're going to have a little bit of a shortcut, a little bit of a cheat code, whatever. But everyone that attends that will have something that they can be doing during that time. And my hope is that we get a whole bunch of people in the chat that are just sharing wins and getting excited about uncovering opportunities that maybe they wouldn't have had otherwise. So for those that are interested, and you're not, many of you on here are registered for that, but let me grab that Zoom link. If you're watching, this on one of the lives, in the description with the video, unless you're watching on TikTok, which just go over to Josh Shanley Coaching on YouTube and it'll be there. Hopefully my internet connectivity picks up a bit and I'm not lagging the whole time. Get it in the chat.
You're going to post that in here as well? I don't think I have that.
The link to the 11 a.m. Yep, I just dropped it in the chat.
Yes, sir. I got it. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Dana
Hey,
shared
Josh.
another book recommendation, The Compound Effect. That is also a great one. I totally agree. I don't know who was talking there. It sounded
Hey,
like
Josh, that was
there it
me,
is.
man.
All right, yeah, gotcha.
Hey, just real quick, man. Yesterday, me and Joseph were doing our normal calls at 10 a.m. cold calls to potential off-market sellers.
Yep.
And just one thing, the tired landlord section was weird. It was not weird. It was great because I called one property. I looked at the property because I'm looking for a investor looking in Redondo Beach, California,
Yep.
for distressed properties. Called this guy named David. I thought it was going to be David. Turns out to be the daughter. David passed away in 2024. The daughter started telling me everything about the mom and the brother that they're thinking about now going to sell. But however, she wouldn't give me the brother's information because they're not in good terms, but the mom's 80. So she gave me like all this detail without me really digging in too deep. And I just let her talk. So it worked out great yesterday. Just letting you know the tired landlords are great avenues too to target.
So you literally were just picking tired landlord from the grade 8?
It was literally the first one. If you look at my LeadDeck, it's the first property I called. And this, the daughter had told me that mom is 80 years old and has 4 properties that her and the brother are talking about getting the paperwork ready. I'm assuming that means listing the properties. So now I got to go search and find the brother now.
If you forced me to pick one audience, buyer, seller, whatever, literally, I could only pick one target in LeadDeck. The nice thing is we don't have to. But if you forced me to, tired landlord would absolutely be the one that I pick because they own a bunch of properties. They've owned them for a long time. They own a primary residence as well. So, and they're either looking to buy or sell or need capital, do an exchange. Like it's like impossible to have a conversation with them and not uncover some real estate related need that you might be able to help with.
Yeah, it was a great call yesterday. Joseph will tell you about it.
So, and if, you know, if you're stacking, like if I want a small list, tired landlord stacked with either tax default or involuntary liens, now we're talking, because then there's also financial or potentially some financial distress, right? And so if you can be the solution provider for them, there's opportunity there. So thanks for sharing that win, and good on you guys for doing the work. How hard was that call, Lo, for everybody here? How were you like perfectly polished and scripted, or was it just a conversation?
No, I actually fumbled in the beginning, and Joseph, actually we had two agents on our live call. I fumbled in the beginning, but at the end, she just gave me all this information. I was like, wow. I think hopefully Joseph recorded it.
You can't say the wrong thing to the right person. And also, if you ask questions and shut up, people will talk. If you have them on the phone, unless, you know, that one guy yesterday, Raza, you know, he didn't want to talk to me, but whatever. If you've got somebody that's at all engaged and you ask questions and you genuinely, like, you have a tone of genuine curiosity and care, people will open up to you. So can't say the right thing to the wrong person or the wrong thing to the right person. The link for 11 a.m. is in the chat. I'll drop it again. That's going to be a work session. So 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to give everyone an action plan that they can follow regardless of what tools or tech or whatever they have. Everyone on there, as long as you have the MLS, and I mean, you have to have a computer to attend. So, or, you know, if you have the MLS and, or, you know, a computer, or the MLS, a computer, and, or your phone, you'll be able to follow along and at least implement, use the script that I'm going to be utilizing today, and create conversation opportunities with off-market sellers. For example, like Lawrence had yesterday on his call session. So 11 a.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Eastern. That block, 11 a.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. I've been going live on Zoom, that same link, that same time for a very, very long time, barring, you know, holiday weeks and so forth. So that same link, same time, same day, every Wednesday. You can save it in your calendar. Call it whatever you want. But that link and that time block, I don't have any intentions of changing anytime soon. And that will be more of the work session that these are typically. But today, you know, strategy and mindset, I thought was maybe a little bit more apropos. And a great share from Harry. One more book recommendation: Atomic Habits with James Clear is that's a really good one. Go ahead, Stuart.
Sorry, completely off topic, but this is kind of scary. So James had replied back when I supposedly said, "What's the name of the book?" Now that you've got the whatever, the whole little dashboard open, there's two accounts for me open up. The one with my video on, and then there's another one that doesn't, which has to be from my phone, which I never logged in from. And through that conversation, it must have picked up and asked what the name of the book was, and even put the little heart reaction emoji thing when James replied to chop wood, carry water. I haven't touched it. So I don't know how I got logged in.
I can't even
That's
tell.
scary.
Hold on. So I only see one of you though. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I do see two of you. Who's the other Stuart? Reveal yourself. I don't know what's going on with that.
I just posted in the chat. I asked the question, Soledad Garcia.
So somehow Soledad is in here as Stuart. I have no idea how that would be. I'm trying to think of how that's possible.
I have no idea.
I have no idea either.
Did Stuart,
Elon Musk, I guess.
Did Stuart send Soledad his link?
I doubt it. I don't think Stuart knows Soledad. Do you? Soledad's in California.
Yeah.
No, I mean, from yesterday, she was asking about a link. I pasted a link in yesterday.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Because it tracks Zoom. Because if you sent you sent her your link, that the Zoom reminder link that you get?
Yes.
That's how. I don't know how or why, but that's definitely how. Like if Bob had sent her his link, she would have logged in, because there's some identifier there with Zoom that is specifically your registration. And they allow you to come in multiple times for that example. Like some people, they'll log up from their laptop and then they'll go from their mobile phone. So like we could have 100. Here's how I know this to be true. I sent the wrong link one time to the Wednesday mastermind, and we had like 10 people on as Terrell Miller, for example. And so that is definitely it. I'm glad we figured it out, because there is weird stuff.
I didn't know that.
So Soledad, if you go and register at thecloserscafe.com, that'll redirect to the Zoom link. If you register from there, you'll get a Zoom confirmation and a link that is the unique identifier to you, so that when you go and join, it will say Soledad Garcia and not Stuart Ebal. So I'm glad we got to the bottom of it. It's not, it wasn't some, I don't know, some foreign intelligence or something nonsense going on. Anyway, I'm going to regroup for about 23 minutes, and then we're going to get to work. Thanks all. Thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it.
Recording.